Good afternoon. Welcome to today's session. This is the third in 4 sessions that are part of the TAFE and Polytechnic series. And today's topic is finding helpful resources using EBSCO Discovery Service, or EDS. My name is Rachel Lowe, and I'm an EBSCO training specialist. Please note that today's session is being recorded. You may have noticed that your microphone has been automatically muted. If you have any questions as we're going along, please hit the raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen or go ahead and type your message into the chat box. Please don't feel like you need to wait until the end of the session to ask any questions. Feel free to jump in anytime. A bit later on today, you will be receiving from me an email with a link to the recording of today's session, a copy of the PowerPoint slides, and a link to an online evaluation. The online evaluation only takes a couple of minutes to complete, and if you're able to take the time to do so, we do appreciate it. Each one we receive is read through carefully, and we use them to help structure future training sessions. As I mentioned, my name is Rachel Lowe, and I'm an EBSCO training specialist. My background is in midwifery, education, and library and information studies. I'm a certified librarian and I continue to practice clinically as a registered midwife. I've put together a few objectives for today's session. It is my hope that by the end of the session, you will be able to describe EBSCO Discovery Service, or EDS, navigate and search EDS, browse and search for publications, construct and apply basic and advanced searches, and locate and access help and support resources. I've put together an interactive quiz to go along with today's session. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be displaying properly. I rehearsed it about an hour ago, and it is a feature I use often, but for some reason it's not displaying correctly. So I'm just going to go ahead and post a link to the quiz in the chat box. So if you'd like to participate in the quiz, it's purely optional. It's just a bit of a fun thing you can do as we're going along. If you open up the chat box and click on the link that you find there, it's something you can fill in as we're going through the session. I'll also post a link to the quiz in the email that I send out this afternoon. All right, so EBSCO Discovery Service is what's referred to in library speak as a discovery layer. And the discovery layer, it's often a search box found on the library homepage or somehow embedded into the library's website. So with a discovery layer, there are numerous databases and other resources that feed into it. So your users can type in a search term, they can perform basic searches, or they can perform quite complex searches, and they search across a variety of resources that feed into the discovery layer. You can set it up so that print collections can feed into the discovery layer, archives, all sorts of things, as well as databases and items like that that you subscribe to. So with EBSCO Discovery Service, as I mentioned, it's a discovery layer, and you have quality data and precision searching, authentication and links to the full text. So it's set up in the back end that your users are able to link to full text where it's available. You can customize the user experience to an extent, and you can also organize integrations and customizations. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is search strategies. And I know that many of the people here today are librarians. So this may be something you're very familiar with, but I know we have a few non-librarians as well. So if those more experienced searchers can just bear with us, I'm going to review some search strategies. And the first one I'm going to talk about is the Boolean search strategy. If you're wondering where the word Boolean comes from, it's because this form of searching is based on the work of a British mathematician by the name of George Boole, Boole, and he lived in England and later Ireland in the 1800s. You may also have heard of Boolean logic that is also based on his work. So Boolean searching is a very simple and logical, but very powerful way of searching. And it consists of simply entering two or more search terms separated by one of the Boolean operators. And the Boolean operators are the words and, or, and not. So the Boolean operator and is used between terms to narrow your search. For example, if I ask the Discovery Service or the database or whatever it is that I'm searching, if I ask for articles about endangered and birds, I will only retrieve references that are about both of those things. I'm not going to retrieve general articles about birds that have nothing to do with endangered. I'm not going to retrieve general articles about endangered that have nothing to do with birds. If I ask for items about endangered and birds, I will only retrieve items that are about both of those things. So it's like the overlap in a Venn diagram, and it's illustrated for you in the infographic at the bottom of your screen in that reddish orange color. The Boolean operator or is used between terms to broaden your search. So if I were to ask my discovery service or my database or whatever it is that I'm searching, if I were to ask for items about endangered or birds, I'll retrieve every single item about endangered as well as every single item about birds. So it's a very broad search, and that's illustrated for you in the infographic at the bottom of your screen in the yellow. Now, this can be a little bit confusing to people who are new to Boolean searching, because of course, in our everyday natural language, when I use the word and is an expander. We're talking about more things. And when I use the word or narrows things down. We talk about one or the other, either or. But in Boolean searching, it works the opposite. And narrows your search and or broadens your search. The Boolean operator not is used to omit a term from your search. So if I were to ask my discovery service for items about endangered not birds, I will retrieve references containing the term endangered, but anything to do with birds will be omitted. And that's illustrated for you in the infographic at the bottom of your screen in the green. Now, I'm also going to mention wildcard searching. With wildcard searching, this refers to using characters on your keyboard like an asterisk or a question mark or a hash or quotation marks. So the asterisk is what's referred to as the truncation or word stemming device, and it takes the place of a string of characters or a string of letters, or it can take the place of a complete word. And I'll just give some examples that will make this clear. If I wanted to do a search for nurse or nurses or nursing, I could enter all of those search terms, or I could enter the common stem or root of those words, in this case, NURS, followed by an asterisk. So from the search engine's point of view, it is looking for any words made up of the letters NURS, followed by other letters. Likewise, if I wanted to do a search for cardiac or cardiology or cardiomyopathy or cardiovascular, anything to do with the heart, I could enter CARDI followed by an asterisk. So again, from the search engine's point of view, it is going to look for words made up of the letters CARDI followed by other letters. But just be aware, of course, we all know how computers work and they're very literal. So if you were to enter CARDI asterisk, you would pick up all those words listed there, but you'd also pick up words like cardigan. Now you can also use the asterisk to take the place of a word. For example, if I were to enter mental health asterisk services, the search engine is going to look for phrases made up of the words mental, health, any other word, and services. So it would pick up things like mental health support services, mental health community services, mental health crisis services, and so on. The question mark is the single character wildcard, and this works like an asterisk, except it takes the place only of a single character. So if I wanted to search for woman or women, I could enter both of those search terms, or I could enter WOM question mark N. Again, from the system's point of view, it is looking for words made up of the letters WOM, any other letter, and N. The alternate spelling wildcard is the hash. So for words that have multiple spellings, words like color, in Australia we spell COLOUR. In some parts of the world, that spelling's been simplified with the U removed. Replace it with a hash and you'll retrieve both spellings. And finally, I'll mention using quotation marks for phrase searching. And I think most people are familiar with this. I know I use this just when I'm searching the internet. If you use quotation marks around a phrase, the system then treats that phrase as a single unit. So in the example here, if I put quotation marks around pressure ulcer, I will retrieve references that contain those terms next to each other in that exact order. And the final search strategy I'm going to mention is what we refer to as proximity searching. Proximity searching is, I believe, less well known than Boolean searching or wildcard searching, but it can be quite useful. So as the name implies, proximity, you're looking for times that your search terms are within a certain number of words of each other. So I'll give you a couple of examples that will make it clear. If I were to enter healthcare N5 leadership, I'm asking the search engine to find any time the words healthcare and leadership are within 5 words of each other in any order. So healthcare N5 leadership would match healthcare leadership. It would also match the phrase leadership in healthcare. Now, if you use the W, it works similarly, but if you use a W, the words must be in the order that you entered them. So healthcare W5 leadership would match the phrase healthcare leadership. It would not match the phrase leadership in healthcare because my search terms are in a different order. All right, I am going to switch to my browser now and we'll do a live demo. All right, now EDS is an interface that can be customized to an extent. So if your library uses EDS, it may look somewhat different to the one on the screen. And I'll just give you a couple of examples. This is the basic search screen. And this is the advanced search screen. Now, some libraries choose to default to an advanced search screen. Others choose to default to a basic search screen. There are lots of different features that can be enabled or disabled in the back end. So if you see things on my screen that are not on the EDS that you use, that's not something to be concerned about. If you're a library administrator, then you may be able to go in and enable or disable certain features. All right, so this is the basic search screen. And I'm just going to go ahead and type in a search term. And I'm going to type in cybersecurity and click on search. All right, now you can see I've got over 864,000 results. And you will notice because there is a publication called cybersecurity that has popped up. And it tells me that there are 5 more matches, and I can click there to view those. There's also a research starter on cybersecurity. And then we start with our results. All right, now my most commonly used filters are here, but again, the interface can be customized. Some people have it set up so that they have a filter panel that is open permanently down the left-hand side. I do not have that set up on this demo account. So here I've got my most commonly used filters, and I can access more filters by clicking on all filters, and it slides out from the right-hand side. Now, again, you may have filters down the left-hand side. That's something that you can make those choices in the back end. All right, so I've done a really basic search here on cybersecurity. And let's say I'm only interested in peer-reviewed items. And let's say I'm only interested in items where the full text is available. And let's say I'm only interested in items published in the last 12 months. And here I'm going to look at source type. And I can see that in my current result list, I've got 22,000 academic journals. I've got magazines, books, reviews, ebooks, and so on. Now I'm just going to click on all filters, and that filter panel slides out from the right-hand side. Again, you may have it enabled on the left-hand side of your screen. But what I wanted to show you in the filter panel here, if I open up Content Provider, and I'm just going to click so that I can see all of them. What this is showing me is that in our current result list of 23,157 results, it tells me where they are coming from. So I've got over 6,000 coming from the complementary index. I've got items coming from Academic Search Complete, from the directory of open access journals. I've got items coming from Medline. I've got items coming from Science Direct, Springer Nature journals, and so on. Okay, so this is a discovery layer. It is pulling results from lots of different resources. Now, if I wanted to just limit to one of those or some of those, I can. But I'm just going to go ahead and look at all filters again. And let's say I'm only interested in items that have been published in English, and I'll go ahead and apply that. All right, and you'll notice with each of these, it tells me what type of resource it is. I've got the title. You will notice anything to do with our search terms is in boldface or italics or highlighted. So I've got the author's name here. You will notice that some authors' names are in green with a little quill icon. And if you click on that author's name, you get information about that author. Here I've got this author's ORCID number, tells me there's 15 total works, 126 cited by. I've got the top co-authors. I've got other works listed, and so on. So this feature is called People Pages. And you will notice not all authors' names are in green. It's only available for some authors. So you can see, for example, in this one, some authors' names are in green and some are not. So we've got title, we've got authors. If there's several, you can click to see all of them. You've got the publication, issue details, the database or source it's coming from. Here I have the beginnings of a description or an abstract, and if I click on Show More, I can see the whole thing. And you will also notice that each article has been tagged with a number of subjects. So this is a way of applying metadata. It's similar to using hashtags on social media. So this article's been tagged with cyberbullying and prevention, cyberbullying prevention and control, computer security, awareness, digital technology, and so on. You will notice that the subjects are clickable. So if I were to click on cyberbullying prevention and control, it would run a search for articles that have been tagged with cyberbullying prevention and control. Here you can see your access options. So it tells me how I can access. Sometimes it's PDF, sometimes it's online full text, sometimes it's an external link, and so on. There's a more like this feature. And again, this is something that can be enabled or disabled in the back end. And it will come up with recommendations based on the subjects. There's also an AI Ask feature and an AI Insights feature. And again, these may be enabled or disabled, so this may be something your library uses or not. If I click on AI Insights, it will generate 2 to 6 points about the article gleaned from the full text of the article, and you can feedback whether or not you found that helpful. I'm just going to click on more like this for another article. And you can see it's come up with 5 recommendations. Again, this is based on the subjects the article has been tagged with. And you can scroll through those and you can feedback whether or not you found that helpful. You've also got access options to view the full text of the suggested article. And you will notice you can save those articles as well. So in your results list here, I can save articles and there's tools here. So there's a great citation tool. If I click on that, I can select a citation style from a drop-down list. Let's say I want APA 7, and I simply click to copy to clipboard. I can also export citations using EndNote or EasyBib or whatever it is that I use. You can also add to a project. You can also share, and if I click on share, I can share via Google Drive, Google Classroom, OneDrive. I can create a link. And I'm also just going to show you um, how you can share. Let's say I want to send to myself the citation. I'm going to send it in APA 7. I'm going to include the abstract, and it's also going to include the PDF full text. So I'm going to send that to myself. And I'll go to my email in just a moment and open that up. Okay, so you can also download. Now, if you want to save items, I'm just going to scroll up and show you. So here you can see I have signed into my EBSCO account. So if I save items, they will be saved permanently here. If you are not signed into a My EBSCO account, you can still save items as a guest, but they will only save for the duration of the session. If you want to use projects, you do need to be signed in. So I'll just show you what that looks like. So let's say I want to add this to a project. Now, because I'm signed in, I'm able to use this feature, and I've got a whole lot of projects there that I have created, but I'm going to create a new project. I'm going to call it cybersecurity. You can put a due date if you like and a description if you like. That's just for your own use. But I've created that project and I've added that item to the project. And I'll just go in and show you what it looks like. If I go into my projects now, there's the cybersecurity project I just created, and there's the record I saved to it. All right, I'm just going to go into my email now and show you. This is what the email looks like that I just sent to myself. So there is the citation of that article in APA 7 format. There is the abstract. There's a permalink to the article. And I can also access that PDF. There it is. Okay. Now, you can do this, just close that. You can do this in bulk as well. So let's say I'm perusing my results list and I'm going through and reading some abstracts and seeing which of these are relevant for my needs. And I'm going through and selecting some of those. And so for those I've selected, I can download in bulk. I can save all of those items I've selected. Let's say I want to add them to my cybersecurity project. I'll go ahead and add those. I can also share in bulk as well, um, whichever way I choose to do that. But just be aware, as we saw when I shared via email one article, I received the full text of the article as a PDF. If you are sharing multiple articles, then the PDFs are not attached for obvious reasons. If you were sharing 50 articles, that would get quite messy. Okay, and you can also bulk cite as well. And you will notice here, I can select all on the page. I can select up to 50. If you are logged into your My EBSCO account, you can select up to 500. And you can also export up to 25,000 results. So if you're doing some really complex searching and you want to save a lot of items, you have the ability to do that. All right. So I'm just going to click on New Search. And I wanted to show you the AI assisted search. So until very recently, that feature was called natural language search, but it's recently changed its name to AI assisted search. And if you want information about it, you can read this pop-up and it links there to an article on EBSCO Connect that provides more information. So if I want to do a natural language search or an AI assisted search, I can toggle that on and I can type in a query in natural language. So I'm going to type in, how can small businesses protect themselves from cyber attacks? Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and search. All right, and you will notice here there are other suggested queries. And again, the what's this is that pop-up box with a link to an article on EBSCO Connect. If you are interested, if you click on Show Refined Query, it will show you the Boolean search that was created. So you can see from my AI assisted search, how can small businesses protect themselves from cyber attacks? The system has created a query using search terms like small businesses or small enterprises, and so on, cyber attacks, cyber threats, data breaches, and so on. Okay, so I've got 1,598 results here, and I can go through and apply some filters. Let's say I'm only interested in peer-reviewed articles where the full text is available that were published in the last 5 years. And I'm going to click on all filters. And again, just out of interest, if you want to see where these articles are coming from, if you go to content provider, that's where you can see them. And let's say I'm only interested in articles published in English. Okay, and I've got a results list of 93 articles here. Now, if you click on the title, it takes you to what we refer to as the detailed record. So here you have a whole lot of bibliographic information about the whether it's an article or a book chapter or whatever it may be. So I've got the title, the authors, the source, the publication year, the subjects the article has been tagged with, the author supplied keywords, and so on. Lots of information there. You will also notice you can view the more like this. So those are the recommendations based on the subjects the article's been tagged with. You can also view publication contents. And you will notice here are the tools we've already looked at. So I can save, I can cite, I can add to a project, I can share, or I can download. Now, if I want to access full text, this article is available in PDF, so we'll have a look at that. And everyone here is familiar with PDF. It looks just like the just like the page out of the publication, complete with page breaks and page numbers. And you'll recognize there's our tools to save or cite or add to a project and so on. With PDF, you also can access publication contents, and I can see those there. There's also a listen feature, and I can download as an MP3. I can adjust the playback speed and so on. And there's also accessibility support. And I'm also going to show you what the online full text looks like because there are a couple of additional features available if you have online full text. Now you'll notice as I'm scrolling that the online full text looks similar to PDF, but you will notice there are no page breaks and no page numbers. All right, and again, I can save, I can cite, I can add to a project and so on. If you have online full text, there is a translate feature. And you can see as I'm scrolling, there's a huge number of languages there. So let's say I want to translate this into Portuguese, Brazilian Portuguese, not a language I know a single word of. Now, this usually takes about 3 to 5 seconds, so it's pretty quick, and you can revert to the original language with one click. And again, I have my publication contents, I have my listen feature, and my accessibility support. All right, so I'm just going to click on New Search. And I'm going to go to my advanced search screen. And I know some of you default to an advanced search screen. This is what the advanced search screen looks like. I've got 3 search bars, but I can add rows. I can have up to 12 search bars. You'll recognize our Boolean operators there, the and, or, and not. And there are also a small number of search fields available here. As you scroll down, you can see there are some filters available also. You also have search options here and also publications. All right. Now let's say I was looking for something specific. Let's say I'm specifically looking for the journal, let's say Harvard Business Review. And let's say I'm looking for a specific article. Let's say I'm looking for an article titled The Best Teams Know When to Work. Sorry, I do so many typos when people are watching me type. Okay, the best teams know when to work alone, which is the title of an article in the journal or in the publication Harvard Business Review. And I can go ahead and search for that. And there's that article. Now you'll notice here it says that there are 2 results, but there's only one listed. And it says here one unique record found. What this means, as we've seen in other searches when we've looked at content provider, we have seen that there are lots of different sources that feed into this discovery layer. So this article came into the discovery layer in a couple of different, from a couple of different sources, which is why it says there's 2 results, but it goes through a deduplication process. And so at the end of the results, it says that there's one unique record found. Now, if it is enabled, and again, it depends on your setup, but if it is enabled on the advanced search screen, sometimes there is a search history that sits above your results list. And you can see these are all the searches we did this session. I did the search for cybersecurity, and each time I applied a new filter, it counts as a new search. So it's a great way to follow the evolution of the search. My initial search had 864,000 results, and then as I applied filters, it narrowed it down and narrowed it down. And then I had my AI assisted searches and so on. Okay, to rerun a search, you simply click on it and it will rerun that search complete with the filters that were applied. You can also view the results of a previous search without rerunning the search. So if I wanted to view these 133,000 results from search number 2, I can simply click on that number and I'll view those results. If I were to click on cybersecurity to rerun that search, then it will say search 12 and it will create a new search. Now you can save searches from here. So let's say search number 5, my search cybersecurity, where I applied the peer-reviewed filter, the full text filter, published in the past 12 months filter, and so on. Let's say I want to save that search. I can simply click on save. And if I go to my saved items, you can see I have saved records. I've got 73 records saved there. If I go to saved searches, there's that search I just saved. That was saved at 12:47 p.m. in my time zone. To rerun that search, I simply click on it. If I want to save this search to a project, I'm going to click Add to Project, and I'm going to add it to my cybersecurity project. And so now when I go into my projects, when I go into my cybersecurity project, I've got those records that I added, and now there's a search sitting there as well. All right, so let's back out and go back to our results list. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and click on New Search. As we've seen, EDS or EBSCO Discovery Service works really well for basic searches. You don't have to be very familiar with complex searching to use EDS. You can certainly go in and find items that are relevant to your needs. But if you are doing more complex searching, it certainly is able to handle that as well. So let's say, for example, I'm going to do a more complex search now. So let's say I'm interested in artificial intelligence or AI. And I'm going to go ahead and do that search. All right, and let's say I'm also interested in vocational education or VET or TAFE. I'm going to add a row and I'm going to say or Polytechnic. All right, and I'm also going to do a search for student with an asterisk. So that could be student or student. All right, now what I wanted to show you with this, so if I look at these last 3 searches where I searched for artificial intelligence or AI, and I searched vocational education or VET or TAFE or Polytechnic, and I searched student, I can combine these. I'm just going to make sure I clear my search bar. I'm going to combine them with and because I only want articles that are about all 3 of these concepts. And I'm going to go ahead and search. So you can combine searches and do quite complex searching. All right, and so our results list is here, and I can go in and start applying filters. All right. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about available help and support. Now, depending how your EDS is set up, you can see here I can browse publications. I've got some research tools here, and these are customizable to an extent. Um, Organizations can also put additional links there if they like. But I have a link here to EBSCO Connect. If you're not familiar with EBSCO Connect, I will send you a link in the email I send you this afternoon. The web address is simply connect.ebsco.com. And if you go to EBSCO Connect, you can find all kinds of information. So let's say I'm interested in Boolean searching. I've typed in Boolean, and here I've got all kinds of articles about how it works. It is filterable down the left-hand side. So let's say I'm interested in EBSCO Discovery Service. And here I've got video tutorials, I've got articles, I've got all kinds of information there. Again, filterable down the left-hand side. All right, I did want to mention to you as well, if you apply for an account with EBSCO Connect. So if you're a library administrator, I do encourage you to request an account. I'm going to go ahead and log in to my EBSCO Connect account. Now, most of the articles and video tutorials on EBSCO Connect do not require a login. But if you want access to certain options, so you can see if you click on Learning, it takes you to EBSCO Academy. You've got tools and resources here, things like direct URL builders, promotional materials, and so on. And you can link here to EBSCO admin. So again, if you're a library administrator and you have access to EBSCO admin, which is one of the back-end portals where you can um, organize some of those customizations. Here under More, this is where you can log cases and you can follow cases. So if you're having some kind of issue, this is your sort of direct link to support. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention, and I will send you a link to this, and again, really, this is just mainly for library administrators, but okay, just going to go ahead and search for the roadmap, and I will send you a link to this. But we are always improving our interfaces, and I will send you a link to the EBSCO interactive roadmap. So if you're interested in EBSCO Discovery Service, if I go to Research Platforms, it tells me what sorts of things are coming soon. You can view what's already been released as well. So we recently had a big release of navigation updates. If you want to read about that, there's a link there to an article on EBSCO Connect, all kinds of information about what has just been released. But if you're interested in what's upcoming, you can go to Coming Soon and you can see the different items that are coming. For example, in October, EBSCO ebook carousels are coming. So that will be something that library administrators can customize and set up. So I will send you a link to that as well. All right, so we've had a look at help and support resources. As I mentioned, I'll send you a link to EBSCO Connect and EBSCO Academy. And again, I apologize for that interactive quiz not displaying properly. I did hold a session just a few days ago with one and it was working, but for some reason today I just could not get it to work. But I will send you a link to the quiz if that's something you're interested in having a bit of fun and filling in. All right, does anybody have any questions? Well, thank you very much for attending today. I hope you found the session useful. As I mentioned, you will be receiving an email from me a bit later on with a link to the recording of today's session, a copy of the PowerPoint slides, and a link to an online evaluation, as well as some of those other links that I mentioned. Thank you so much for attending and enjoy the rest of your week.